Welcome back to Feel Free, the only podcast that'll tell you to chase your dreams and call you out on all your bullshit, myself included. If you haven't already, subscribe, follow, share, tell everybody you know about us. Keep listening. Appreciate it. Some other news I wanted to talk about before we got into the actual episode. I will be doing a guest swap with another podcast. My buddy Todd over at Bunny Hugs and Mental Health podcast reached out to me to do the guest swap. We are going to go on each other's podcast and talk about our books. So I'll be going on to talk about parables and my story, and he's going to be coming on my podcast to talk about his book, Sometimes Daddy Cries, which is another mental health book. A children's book, a great way to have the conversation of mental illness with children and adults alike. So, without further ado, today I got Jimmy back on. Jimmy, also known as Chris Megenbier.
How's it going?
We back at it again. So it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. I tried to get as many people on in between that as possible.
Yeah, it was like the first official one, right?
Right, it was.
And now what? We're on episode 30, I think?
This is 30.
Yeah, so come full circle.
Right, big numbers. I wanted to bring you on today, talk about a very special topic, something that obviously I'm very passionate about is sobriety, and a lot of my writing is centered around that. The whole Feel Free motto is to, understand our habits so we can chase our dreams better. So you had recently given up smoking weed.
Yes.
So how many days you got no weed now?
Today is technically the 5th week.
The 5th week?
Yes.
So a little over a month then, right?
Yeah, month and a quarter.
Okay. And for our listeners, how long have you been smoking?
The first time I smoked, I was 13.
Right.
Really enjoyed it. From there, I would say I started smoking regularly around 14. So it was like the summer going into high school from 8th grade.
Okay. And you say regularly, like a daily thing or weekly?
Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day. And I mean, like, it was pretty much, give or take 3-4 month breaks here and there. Yeah, pretty much every day. Now, when I started smoking, I was smoking a lot more than I have been recently.
Right.
So I guess over time, the amount that I've smoked has only gone down. But when I was 14 and we were young and dumb, and
that was the thing to do.
Yeah, that's just what we did.
Right.
So
you got around like 16 years of habitually smoking.
Yeah,
then,
basically.
Right?
I mean, like I said, a couple months here and there of breaks, but for the most part, yeah, it's been about 16 years of pretty consistent use.
Gotcha. Now, the reason why I'm having you on, and also Jackie will come on, and then eventually Will's going to come on, so we can get a different angle from each of you on why you were quitting, what you seek to accomplish with that, and because I think you all have 3 different inspirations for why you're doing it. Although you and Jackie are doing it together and you might have similar goals here and there, I feel like internally as an individual, you're doing it for your own reasons, right?
Yeah.
So why is this time different from the other times that you decided to, get sober here and there for a month?
Well, so unfortunately, I can't. It's because it's only been a little over a month. I can't tell you that it's going to be that much different.
Okay.
That's just the way it is, and that's the way it's always been. Because there have been several other times where I have tried this in the past, and I thought it was going to be semi-permanent, and then it's like I smoke once or twice, and then it goes from like once a week to twice a week, and then back to every day.
Right.
So my goal for right now, I guess, is to just widen the gap as long as I can
before you do it again?
Before it happens again.
Okay.
That's kind of the way that I see it. If I do it, it will probably be more of a special occasion, maybe like my bachelor party coming up.
I was going to say
maybe after the wedding. I'm not going to smoke before the wedding or even before the reception, because then I'm just going to be all zonked out at the fucking table. But we did talk to the venue, and they did say that he's totally cool with people smoking weed there as long as they do it outside. So I mean, like,
nice.
it's
nice and accommodating.
Yeah,
I mean, if people are going to be drinking, you got to give them the option.
That's what I'm saying.
Both,
I mean, like, it's legal in the state of Illinois. It's private property. Like,
right?
Who's gonna complain?
Exactly.
Like, so it is what it is. But I mean, like, just for the sake of just holding out on this as long as I can and not like ruining my wedding,
right?
It would be something that probably happened after, if I even decided to do it.
Gotcha.
And I don't like the idea of planning it either.
Yeah.
I feel like it needs to be something that's more sporadic.
Right. I understand that.
Not necessarily like a reward, but
that's kind of how I'm starting to view my cigar smoking.
yeah.
You know, like using any substance is out of the question for me at this point, just because of the positive effects that it's had on my life and just what sobriety means to me in general. But, you know, smoking a cigar, the whole use of tobacco isn't really an issue for me, but it isn't something that I plan now. It's just something that'll come around on a certain occasion as a way for me to relax, you know?
And I kind of almost see it as like dieting, same kind of deal.
Right.
You don't want to plan your cheat meal every week.
No.
Because then you're kind of like just undermining your progress. It's like,
I feel like you're going to start planning it every week.
and then that cheat meal just keeps getting worse and worse. And you're like, well, I did good all week. Like,
Right.
I deserve this. And
Next
like,
thing you
that's
know-
like the worst thing that you can do is like this whole, like, I deserve this mentality. Like,
yeah,
I work so hard, I deserve. No,
Right.
Get that out of your head. Like,
because then you're going to say that every single day.
about anything.
About
And
anything.
then that's like the first step in justifying like any bad habit or, you know,
Right.
bad decision that you're going to make is I deserve it.
Yep.
It's
But we really don't.
no.
No, I think life just gets so difficult for us that we think we need a little reward like that
Yeah.
at the end of every day.
Yeah.
So do you have a different mindset about this time around being sober? I know you said you wanted to widen the gap as much as possible. You've gotten to like a month every here and there for the last like 15 years from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything like replaying in your head of why you want to get to a certain day? Do you want to get to 6 months? Because you have the wedding coming up, or maybe the bachelor party.
I mean, I wouldn't say I have a specific day in mind. I think that I will know when I'm ready for it.
Gotcha.
I think that right now I'm still getting the occasional craving.
Of course.
And it's just like, it's not anything other than like, man, I really want to smoke right now.
Yeah.
And then it passes, you know, like anything else. I don't know. I don't really have any kind of ending or goal period of time in sight. It's
Right.
more so just, I'm just going to keep pushing it until I decide like I can handle it.
Gotcha. Because I know the only reason I asked that is because like when I asked my brother, or when my brother initially did his sobriety, he said, I'm going to give it 1 year and I'm going to see how different my life is at that point. And which is what led him to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, because if you're going to outweigh the pros to cons at that point, it's not even comparable in my opinion.
And then by the time you get to a year, it's like, why would I stop?
Exactly.
Like, my life has been so good, especially in Joe's case. Like, obviously, like, you know, it did nothing but terrible things for him.
Right.
Like,
I mean, the same with me as well.
Yeah.
I didn't go into it with like, I'm going to give it 1 year. I think maybe I said that, but realistically, I knew it had to be indefinite.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to like try and bargain with myself, but like Joe always needs like some type of bet, you know, because he loves
Of course, that's
he
how
loves
he is. Yeah,
gambling,
he is the competition.
He
you
is
know
the
what I mean?
competition.
He is the spirit of competition.
Right. So what are you specifically trying to accomplish with getting off of this?
Well, so I think it's important to note that, like, for me, it was never, and I mean, this is the case for me with any substances that I've ever used. It was never me masking something.
Right.
Like, in the past, it was when I first started, it was more so just something that was like fun and exciting, and like, you know, it allowed me to think outside of the box proverbially, and, you know, also made me feel pretty good. That's, you know, part of the reason why people get high in the first place. And when I was a little bit of a psychonaut, if you will, again, it was all just like for the experience. It was
Gotcha.
never anything. I was never trying to bury anything or hide anything or cope with anything or anything like that. For me, it's always been about the experience. But the problem is that it's become, since after doing it for such a long period of time, it stops becoming a habit and more just became a part of who I was.
Right.
That's just how I function normally.
Yeah.
I was just always high. And like, you know, for people who don't smoke, they know when they get high, like that, you know, they're going to be high, they're going to act high, they're going to be silly. For me, it's like, no, I'm still sober.
This is baseline for you.
Yeah,
pretty much.
this is baseline. This is what I'm used to. This is like how I live now. You know what I mean? So to go back to the original question, what am I trying to accomplish this time and why? I think more than anything, it's just like I just don't I want to just live life without it. It's been a while since I've experienced true sobriety, and it's been great so far. And I feel a lot better, and we can talk, I'm sure we'll get more into that, but
yeah.
And it's just, I have a lot more motivation to do things. And like, I have, I actually like am a lot more willing to do things that I didn't want to do before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I feel like I may have lost a little bit of that creative edge that I had, but
by getting sober,
because I have a very analytical mindset. So
I'm the same way.
Like, yeah. So being able to smoke and like kind of let go of some of that and like allow other thoughts to flow in was always nice and welcome. But like you shouldn't. There's no need to do it every single day.
Right.
Like, and that's really what it is. And I feel like I'm not like I said, a little while ago, I'm not at a point where I could just casually do it. And every time I've tried to just casually do it, I've gotten sucked right back into the habit.
Right.
So for me, it's just, remove it from my life for a little bit and see what happens.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, one of the sub questions I was going to ask was why was moderation not an option for why you decided to quit, but you just kind of answered that.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that you mentioned the creativity thing, because a couple of weeks ago I had my buddy Muncie on the podcast. He's a rapper from Detroit. He's 4 years sober now too. And he came on and we talked about creativity, and we also talked about how it was a little difficult or different trying to get into a creative mindset when we were sober.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Eminem, like now versus when he was all fucked up. Like,
well, that's everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you're so used to like pulling out your creativity while you're using for a decade or 2 decades, and then you stop. Like your brain is almost like, well, I can't be creative now.
You're gonna have to figure it out without me. Basically.
Exactly. And it took me a long time as well to be able to write freely and write consistently after, a couple months or even a year of being sober, right? Because I relied heavily on using to be creative as well. It does come around, though. It's just not something you really want to do in the first couple months when you're getting sober.
Totally.
The only thing you really want to be focusing on is not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. I mean, it's been, like I said, it's for me, at least in terms of not thinking about it, it's been pretty easy. Not much to hold on to, I guess. It's just sometimes I'm like, fuck, I really wish I was high right now. or like, fuck, I really want to smoke right now. Like the act of smoking
something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that and I get that because
smoking weed specifically, because I mean,
okay.
like
I was about to say smoke in general.
Yeah, like I miss the taste, I miss the smell,
Gotcha.
like and I've been around it since, and it's been fine. Like, but
yeah,
that's there's the oral fixation piece. There's also the I want to be high piece, but it is what it is.
Right.
Like,
but what about anything else other than the creativity? Why else did you want to quit? What are you like looking to accomplish with that?
I mean, I think that the other part of it was, and a lot of people complain about this, is the complacency. And every single person that I've talked to about smoking weed who's a regular weed smoker says the same thing. Like, it just makes you complacent. It makes you okay with the status quo. And like, I just got sick of being in that mindset, and I let myself, and we'll probably discuss this more too, but like I had started doing keto, lost a bunch of weight, started feeling really good, and then kind of fell off. Since then, like I've been, I had been smoking, and eventually like I stopped working out. I started eating like shit again. Part of this had to do with COVID, and everybody dealt with some shit over COVID. So that was definitely a catalyst. But I can't blame it all on COVID, because it was still my own laziness at the same time. Like, I had plenty of freedom to do what I wanted and make better decisions during COVID. I just chose not to. And, cannabis made it easier for me to be accepting of that. And so since I stopped, I mean, it's been, within a week of stopping, I like started working out again. And like, I've been kind of branching out, doing other things that I normally wouldn't have done. And I feel like I've kind of like, there's also like the dopamine aspect of it where I'm willing to give up other things that give me pleasure just because I got that temporary hit of dopamine from, smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And so since then I've had to like find other things to give me that hit. And so like, it's kind of allowed me to do things that like I was planning on doing, but just never really got around to doing.
We're just putting it off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like putting it off is more like in terms of things that I had to do. And obviously there was a lot of that, but it was also things that I just wanted to do, but just couldn't find the motivation to do for whatever reason. Probably because I was high, like
That's
as the song goes.
That's probably the reason.
Because I got high.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's I'm very biased towards it. I don't like it.
Of course.
And
I mean like
especially from a workout aspect.
Oh yeah.
Because I talk
also a food aspect.
Everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, it makes me okay with playing way too many video games. It makes me okay with eating out and eating like shit. It makes me okay with not being active. And those three things are really important to me. Is for me now, it's like monitoring my video game playing because I've not gotten rid of every pleasure in my life. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Of
so,
course. Everybody needs a vice.
Right.
And I have a couple of them.
But
video games is one of my vices.
Right. I do keep an eye on it a lot better than when I was using though.
Yeah.
Right. So like with weed, like I said, those three things were very important to me. And that was that was the reason why I had to quit. I'm like, I do not want to work out if I smoke. And it doesn't matter what time of the day. If I smoked in the morning, I am not working out the rest of the day. It just ruined the rest of the day for me.
See, yeah, and when it comes to working out especially, or just like doing any kind of activity that was like not me sitting in front of a computer, I woke up with, I'm going to do it today, or like I'd go to bed with like, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then, like 12:30 rolls around, I still haven't worked out, and I decide to pack a bowl, and then it's like, okay, well, guess we're gonna try again tomorrow. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not really like, it's hard for me to work out in the morning. Like if I was in a routine where I was, but like
I remember that.
It's been hard for me to get back into that routine. It's like the second I smoked, all bets were off. Like even just to do some simple resistance training with like this, with this little system that I have like in my apartment. Didn't even have to leave, didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have to spend more than like a half hour, 45 minutes doing it. And even then it was still just like, yeah, no, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And then
did it also attribute to you making poor nutritional decisions?
Of course. I mean, dude, come on. Like fucking everybody knows about the munchies. Like,
right. I mean,
and I get them bad.
For you and Jackie though, a lot of the food that you kept in your apartment or your place is very high nutritional value food.
We try to be primal. Like, like we're the kind of people that like go to the farm and get raw milk, or like the, fresh duck eggs, or like we just bought our second half cow and filled our freezer with it. But like, we'd be smoking all day, and then fucking 9:30, 10 o'clock at night would roll around, and we're like, we're snacky, Snaggy Jackie. And we'd end up going to Jewel and getting snacks and buying a bunch of shit that we shouldn't buy and eat, and eating at the wrong time. And
I was gonna say,
yeah, and I mean, like, that was just part of it, but it's that's a big part of it. That like one of the things that there hasn't been, like, other than like the occasional like sparkling water run, like there hasn't been any of that since we both quit smoking.
Right.
Like no late night snacks or anything like that. It's been a lot easier to just be able to get that under control.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's crazy that
it saves money.
You're saving money, you're saving time, and you feel a lot better waking up, I bet.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Like fucking eating before you go to bed is just awful, dude. I always wake up feeling groggy as fuck. So
right. I hate that shit.
Yeah, man. Same here.
So yeah, there's the motivation to do new things, or things you have planned for yourself in like a positive manner. Maybe you wanted to work on business, or maybe you wanted to work on some of your clients, or maybe you just wanted to work on stuff. Now, when you would smoke, like you said, all bets are off. You're going to eat food late at night, and it didn't help with your motivation towards your goals. So with this first month down, or 5 weeks or whatever, do you think that it would be different if you got to the 6 month mark?
I mean, that's kind of a tough one. I think that for right now,
because you haven't been to the 6 month mark yet.
I think the closest I got was like 4 months before.
Okay.
What
was that?
That was, there's been a couple times that I've quit. Like while I was doing keto, actually, like in the beginning, I actually stopped smoking for probably like 4 to 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
It was that long?
Yeah. And then I started smoking again because I was like, like I need to fucking do something. Like,
right.
so, I wasn't really playing video games. I was working out hard as fuck and doing everything else. So I was like, I can treat myself with this for now, and it worked out for a while. But in terms of getting to the 6-month mark now, I think, since I stopped smoking, I've had a lot more motivation to get stuff done. Like I've said, I've just felt better. There was always, a lot of people don't experience this. Usually like one of the side effects that you hear with people from smoking weed, especially when they don't do it that often, is they get very anxious, very paranoid and anxious. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that problem. So especially like when I'd mix it with something else, even like coffee, like, a stimulant with it, I had a lot of like really weird side effects. One of them especially was like high blood or low blood pressure. So like whenever I stood up, I felt like I was gonna like pass out.
Yeah, that's weird.
I think part of that is like dehydration, but I also think that there's like a mineral balance piece there and like some other kind of biochemical shit going on behind the scenes. And so there was that, and then it just along with the low blood pressure was just like chronic fatigue. Mm-hmm. And so that was also part of the reason why I just like never wanted to do anything. And after not smoking for, just like the first week, I mean, like I would notice after a couple days of not smoking, because, I've done multiple days off so many times.
Right.
And even just going a couple days not smoking, like I'd notice like
instantly,
I actually have the energy to do shit now, and I don't feel like shit all the time. And I can drink my coffee and enjoy it and like not have to worry about like feeling like I'm gonna pass out every fucking time I stand up.
That's fucking crazy.
So I mean, like, just the fact that like I felt as good as I have, and I've also made a couple other changes that like a couple other nutritional changes that like I feel like have helped.
I was gonna say, so there's two habits specifically that you're going to replace the weed smoking with, and that's your exercise routine, and also I say nutritional, like actually going the extra mile with your nutritional routine.
Yeah.
Like eating at correct times, preparing the meals correctly, not eating all snacky and stuff.
Yeah.
So I felt like those two routines were something that you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, like, so even like I eat a pretty clean diet, or what I would consider a pretty clean diet.
I'd say so.
Mostly meat. Like especially now, like I'm doing keto again, so it's mostly meat. Occasionally have like some cheese or like some yogurt or something like that. Some raw dairy.
Did you get into ketosis yet?
Of course, yeah. No, I've been doing keto pretty much since like the day that I quit ish. So part of my problem with smoking was that like, I like to do intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And I like to extend my fasts. And when I was smoking, it was very difficult to extend the fast because so when I was super deep keto, it was easy for me to smoke while I was fasting. I had no problem. Mm-hmm. Trying to get back into it, not only would like I have like just this uncontrollable urge to eat something and not have like the willpower to push myself through it, but it was also like I just wanted terrible food. And so like the first day I didn't smoke, just immediately jumped into a 36-hour fast with no problem.
That's fucking weird.
So like I was like I'm gonna fast, and then I kept going, and I was like, let's see how long I could push this for. And then I just decided, like, at 36 hours, it was like 36 or 40 hours or something like that. I was like, like, I'm going to eat now so that, like, I don't feel like shit later, pretty much. Because,
Right.
like, there's, like, the whole refeeding thing that, like, you get kind of tired.
I was going to say, like, a 48-hour fast after the first 2 days of not smoking weed would be a ridiculous shock to your body.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you're probably filled with a lot of adrenaline in the moment.
Yes.
But maybe after the 48-hour mark, if you woke up the following day, you'd probably be like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So it's more so just like when I'm in the fast and if I can focus on a single task, great. Like I can go. You know what I mean? It's like rocket fuel. Mm-hmm. But if there's like, if I have to like work really hard and there's like multiple things that I have to do.
Yeah.
Like, probably, if you're going to intermittent fast for like less than 24 hours, that's probably a good spot. But like once you get to like that 36, 48 hour mark and like you start having like all of these different stressors come in, mm-hmm. it becomes very hard to focus on any one of them just because of that's just where your body's at. Your body's kind of like, okay, I'm trying to survive now. You know what I mean? And now you're going to add more stress into the equation. So,
but you're also like bombarded by like so many different stimulus at that point.
Yeah.
Like you said, because you're using all this energy, your adrenaline's running, you're getting hit by all these different things at the same time, and you're just like overwhelmed at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, I got time. I can come back to this.
Right.
And so, what was the original question? Sorry.
I think it was
Kinda
like
got off on a tangent.
It's all good. I think it was, what new habits were you trying to use to fill the void of smoking?
Oh, okay. So we were just talking about nutrition and exercise.
Right.
I mean, like, and then so within a week, I would say I like to have like a definitive start point. And so within the first week of not smoking, like the following Monday, I was like, okay, I'm going to start my routine up again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got right back into lifting, and I'm also trying to walk more. Got like this little under desk treadmill so that like I have a standing desk so that I can just walk on the treadmill, kind of get just stop being so sedentary.
Yeah, I've been going on walks last week when it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hitting some walks. It was real fucking nice.
Yeah. It's good to be outside.
Love it. Yeah. I'm not going to try and like get off topic, but I was done with the winter,
Yeah.
I love the winter initially, because it's very calm for me.
This is like the third temporary winter that we have right now. If you've ever seen the meme where it like has all of the actual phases of winter.
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
But yeah, like at the end of winter, I'm pretty much ready for the sunshine, especially for the walks.
Yeah.
So while the weather's nice for the next 6 to 7 months in the Midwest, I probably go on like 3 to 4 walks a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
a good habit.
Yeah, it's just nice. And those are even after, like, I went and hooped on Saturday for like 3 hours.
And then went for a walk after.
I went for a walk after because it was just nice out. So those are really good habits to get into. Now, when you're lifting, you're doing the X3 bar, right?
Yeah.
Hate that fucking thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I kind of switched it up though. I've decided to do more of a traditional style of doing it. So I'm not just like what's recommended with it is to do just like one set as hard as you can to failure. I don't necessarily.
That's for building strength though.
Well, so I mean the guy who makes it like claims that that's the best way for hypertrophy, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't. Either way, like I've decided that I'm going to do multiple sets with it. So
yeah, but you're supposed to. Well, I mean, like I said, like if you're trying to just max out your muscles like that, that'd be if you're just trying to like hit a bench like 5 times at the most weight you can do.
Yeah,
one set.
Yeah, like 1 rep max type things.
Like that's when you're trying to build like strength. When you're trying to like push your muscles to the limit, like in terms of how much they can push.
Yeah,
like that. When
I'm
you're
going more for like hypertrophy work.
Yeah, well, that's what I started doing for basketball too. It's like I want to be able to have endurance. I want my muscles to have endurance. I want to be able to do multiple sets of lighter weight. You know, for like form and stuff like that.
I just think that like there's a ton of ways to skin a cat, and there's a whole separate podcast that could be done on just this one topic.
What you mean, just like working
just
out?
How like
to work out?
even just in terms of doing resistance training, like how to maximize muscle growth and what kind of exercises are good for what, and you can find studies all across the board that support a number of different things. But I decided to go more traditional this time, so I'm doing like 6 sets of each workout, and I feel like even though I'm not getting to that point of absolute failure, I am getting close, and it's also allowing me to do more volume, which, over the course of the week, I feel like that's just going to be better long term.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about your goals too. It's like, are you going to like build muscle mass and strength?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to just like get in really good shape?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of both. But I can say, I know you don't like the X3 bar.
I
can say that after using it for as long as I have, I can hit these muscle groups just as good, if not better, as I can with free weights, because I have worked out with free weights since then.
See, I don't hate the workouts, right? I enjoy them when I do them. I don't like that I wouldn't like it being a main source of how I work out, because I like going to the gym.
Yeah.
I like having a lot of space to do plyometrics. I like playing basketball. There's treadmills there. I can walk backwards on a treadmill to help my knees.
Well, so like, what about like in terms of resistance training though? Like
I still use like the machines. I don't always use free weights. Like there's still like pulley systems and stuff I do.
The assist,
Is that considered
that's still considered resistance training.
Yeah, so I
anything
do,
that's like isolating a muscle group and you're working it. Like in terms of you're putting a load on it and moving that load.
So I do more free weight than I do resistance, but I do have resistance built into my workouts throughout the week. So like I said, I don't hate it. I just don't. I wouldn't like it to be my only source of working out, standing here in my living room. Because I enjoy getting out of here. And I enjoy going. Maybe see some people I know. Maybe I'll go hoop. I can also work on my shot after I'm done working out. Yeah. So I just wouldn't get in a really good routine using it.
For me, I've always hated going to the gym.
Okay.
The only time that I really liked having like somewhere that I go for something like that was when I was in martial arts. Yeah. And that was because it was very regimented, pretty much pre-planned. It was in a class with a bunch of people, all had the common goal of, working towards being better at that activity.
Right.
When I was doing that, I was also resistance training, and I would go to the gym with my buddy Richie. And, that also helped because I would say the nutritional piece was more my side and the training piece was more his side. And so we were able to kind of put our heads together and come up with something that worked for both of us and help each other out and, follow the same routines. And I could make recommendations to him and he could make recommendations to me. And since moving to away from Melrose, really not living at my parents' house anymore, it's become a lot harder to do that.
Right.
And I would eventually love to start going back to a gym, but I wouldn't go back to the gym necessarily for the equipment. It would be more for the outside of that, like any kind of classes that they offer, a sauna, which I'm already going to. I do an infrared sauna. There's a studio right by my apartment that I go to, but like, sauna and, cold plunge and those kinds of amenities would be more so what I would be looking for if I decided to go and get a membership.
Gotcha.
I mean, I like the idea of it's a very small footprint, fits right in my living room. I can get work done in between sets or listen to the music that I want to listen to or put the podcast on that I want to put on, or if I get an email I can check it real quick and not have to feel guilty about it, like I'm just sitting there on my phone. So it has its ups and downs.
Yeah. Now, for the nutritional side of things, what have you been doing differently other than the not snacking really late? Because that was kind of the one thing, eating like shit when you got high and then eating late at night.
I mean, and so also another thing is just eating, just constantly grazing throughout the day, I think is another problem that way too many people do.
Well,
just the constant snacking.
Have you done less of it now that you stopped smoking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was so on top of the two things that you just mentioned, there's also just instead of having like a couple like half-assed meals and then grazing throughout the day, they're more well-rounded
whole meals,
higher. Yeah. Like more of a bolus of calories in one sitting, as opposed to me just constantly eating, just walk into the kitchen, find something else to eat, walk into the kitchen, find something else to eat. You know what I mean? Like that never ending cycle. It's like you open the refrigerator, you don't see anything, and then you walk away, you come back, lower your expectations, open the refrigerator, see if you can find anything. Like, and then you gradually are like more and more willing to actually like prepare something, as opposed to just pulling it out of the refrigerator and eating it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's also, I just haven't had nearly as much of an urge to want to just constantly graze and just constantly check my cabinets in my refrigerator, even though I know that there's nothing in them.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah.
What is the other thing about nutrition that you said you have been doing differently?
Okay, so for anybody that knows me, this would not be out of the ordinary at all, but for people who don't, like, it sounds fucking crazy, and that is eating raw liver.
See, before you even get into it, I'm gonna tell you, I haven't been a fan. It's definitely an acquired taste.
So I don't actually like eat it like how you would think. For me, it's become a multivitamin. Mm-hmm. And I take it just like I would a pill. Fill my mouth with water, take like just like a quarter, or just like usually it's about 1 ounce.
Okay.
So it's like just a small amount, like the size of like 2 quarters, like side to side, laying down. Okay. And I just fill my mouth with water, drop it in, swallow both of them, done. Take it like a pill. Don't taste it, and hardly ever gag because I'm pretty used to it at this point. And I've just noticed tremendous like benefits from it, and it's been
specifically?
It's been great. Just a lot more, for one, a lot more energy. Just a lot more motivation. And I mean, we could do I'd like to do like a whole separate thing on this eventually, talking about like why I think it's been so beneficial for me. We could get into that a little bit, but like it definitely like deserves its own podcast, because I think that like,
yeah, that's flat out.
Aside from that, like so many people out there could have so much benefit from doing this, just because of the way that like some of these vitamins and minerals work within the human body, especially based off of genetics and epigenetically, we can kind of alter how some of those genetics function. But I also had, so on top of having, really like just more motivation and more being able to.
Do you think that the more motivation thing could be from the not using weed, or is it both?
I mean, like, I think
because you started around the same time, right?
No, so I didn't start. So I stopped smoking about 5 weeks ago. I didn't start doing the raw liver thing until about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I noticed like within like 2 days,
an even bigger increase. In
2 days of doing the raw liver thing was like, it like honestly like changed my life, like even more so than just not smoking.
Right.
So I do think that there's some benefit to it, and I do think that there's like some biochemical, aspects behind why. And it's basically, liver is like the most nutrient dense food on the planet. People talk about things like acai berries being a superfood. Like, no, that's bullshit. Like there is no plant food that comes anywhere close
to meat,
to not only meat, but specifically organs, like especially liver. Like, liver has so many unique nutrients. Like it has like it's just a powerhouse of like all the B vitamins, vitamin A, choline. There's a bunch of peptides that come from liver that like we're just beginning to understand, and how those are beneficial. And there's just so like copper, other minerals. There's just so many benefits to consuming it. And like just because of the standard American diet and the soil, the quality of the soil and the overabundance of plant foods in the diet, like it's just, these are things that like we've been missing out on for so long. And people think organ meats are disgusting, but like,
right. Well, they've just demonized eating them because it's not like, if you're eating like raw organs, like it's not a glorious thing.
No, it's not.
It's very barbaric.
Yeah,
we don't like
very primal.
We don't like looking at ourselves as primal beings anymore, because we've ascended to this level of consciousnness.
Yeah,
21st century. We're still humans.
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
we're still
like,
animals.
There is even in like there is no way that you are going to outdo 100,000 plus years of human evolution
right now,
like in the next 100 years.
Yeah, I don't think that nutrition or science in general is at a point where we'd be able to condense all of the nutrients that we require into a more easily accessible form than an organ.
And even then, like even if we created a supplement that matched liver in all of its glory, it would still not be the same. It's not a whole food source, depending on, like in order to get some of these nutrients in forms that can become a powder and be put into a pill.
Yeah.
They're not going to be nearly as bioavailable. They're,
right.
It's just not the same thing. It's like, why would we try to recreate what nature has already done for us? It makes no sense to me. Obviously, I understand, like people don't like the idea of killing an animal, but like, that's who we are.
Right.
Like that's what we did forever.
That's what we do
and there's
now.
no way we're going to outdo that. And that's why all these vegans and vegetarians require such robust supplementation in order to survive.
Right.
It was never possible until today.
So you've had this knowledge of nutrition for a while now. Why did you not start eating? And this is your second half a cow, like you already stated, right? So you've already had half a cow before this as well. Why did it take you so long to start doing the liver thing as a habitual routine?
Okay, so the reason why actually I in the motivation piece or the energy piece wasn't even the reason why I decided to get into liver. So I had I've always suffered with acid reflux.
Okay.
And a lot of people, I know that's, it's a complaint among many, many, many people.
Lisa's is just developing now.
Yes. So it was acid reflux, and there's different kinds of acid reflux. There's like GERD, which is what a lot of people experience, gastroesophageal reflux disorder. That occurs more in the stomach and then kind of pushes up into the esophagus. You have your LES, your lower esophageal sphincter. It's basically a butthole that sits right at the bottom of your esophagus. Right at the tip of the stomach, right at the top of the stomach. And then, contrary to what people think, what actually happens is humans have the most acidic stomach in the animal kingdom. Like, our stomach should be anywhere between a pH of 0.5 to 1. And and that also just kind of goes to show that, like, we were scavengers, and that is what's necessary to be able to digest meat and also derive nutrition from that meat. But what actually happens is through eating the sad standard American diet, you actually your stomach starts to lose the ability to acidify in a way it did. And then especially when you're overeating, when you're eating too late at night and everything else, and you're not fully digesting your food, you'll have bacterial overgrowth that kind of starts to grow in your stomach. And then that bacteria, in order to create an environment that it can actually survive in, will purposely create ways of purposely lowering your stomach acid so that you can't kill it.
Okay.
So that's like more GERD. And I started out with that, and I don't know how it kind of evolved into this, but then I started noticing issues with it didn't feel like it was coming from like the center of my chest. It started to feel like it was coming from lower than that.
Okay.
Like further on down the digestive tract. And so what I found, and through other various symptoms that I was experiencing, was that I had a sluggish gallbladder. And so the gallbladder kind of helps produce bile, and then there's a whole system where it kind of, stuff comes from the liver and the pancreas and then mixes with the bile from the gallbladder, and then that gets flushed into the small intestine. And so when you have a sluggish gallbladder, the gallbladder that's supposed to be the bile is supposed to be almost like a detergent, like picture like soap. It's supposed to be like almost kind of like soap in terms of viscosity, and it's supposed to help flush everything out. But what ends up happening is it becomes like basically sludge. It becomes very thick and sludgy, and then that leads to all sorts of issues, especially down the line, like hepatitis, which is just inflammation of the liver. It leads to gallstones. One of my main experiences, and something that a lot of people with gallbladder issues complain about, is right shoulder pain. So you get this really sharp pain like right in your right shoulder. And so I had, and especially like after doing like certain like acupressure things, like just like kind of pushing on it and like pushing around it, like knowing that like, okay, like I've kind of narrowed it down to my gallbladder, and then doing further research and saying, so what's kind of the downstream effects of that? And aside from the hepatitis, you also, or like, fatty liver, which is fat accumulation around the liver, which is really common in diabetics, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You also develop a condition called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you're not supposed to have that much bacteria in your small intestine.
Okay.
And
so there's a limit to it.
So basically the bile that comes from the gallbladder is supposed to help neutralize all that bacteria before it gets flushed into the small intestine. And eventually, when you have a sluggish gallbladder, it leads to a bile deficiency, which means that all of that bacteria and everything else isn't being killed off properly like it's supposed to before it gets flushed into the small intestine. And so then you start having all this bacteria living in the small intestine, and that just leads to a whole bunch of other issues with digestion, being able to go to the bathroom properly, having like loose stools and all sorts of other issues down the line. And so I was taking some supplements to try and help with that. A lot of this is genetic. And, again, that's why I think that this like kind of deserves its whole separate podcast, because all of this stuff is also connected to everything from autoimmunity to depression to anxiety to migraines to all sorts of stuff that we can talk about down the line. But for me, within 2 days of eating liver raw, my acid reflux was gone.
That's crazy.
And like this was while I was taking supplements that like kind of mimicked some of the nutrition that's in liver.
Yeah.
And then also like taking bile salts to help promote like the production of bile, but also introducing more bile. And like I don't have to take those supplements anymore, or at least I haven't had to, because everything apparently that I need is in the liver.
Right.
And I think part of what I was missing was one of the B vitamins, B2, called riboflavin, which all the B vitamins are found in super high quantities in liver. Mm-hmm. And I was taking supplements that had like B12 and what's the other one? Folate. But, based off of genetics, there's so many different pathways where things like folate and riboflavin, and so B2, I think it's B7 and B12 are all like really used in. I think the missing piece for me was the riboflavin. And so being able to get that level of riboflavin from liver has just like completely changed everything for me. It's like just given me so much more energy. It's helped my digestion. I don't wake up in the middle of the night like coughing from acid reflux, not feeling like shit anymore. I'm not constantly like, every time before I would eat something, I would just feel super bloated and I'd be burping, and like I just didn't even want to eat anything. And then even like when I tried to fast for extended periods of time, I would still get this like awful acid reflux. And there's like, I'm fasting. What am I supposed to do about it? I drink some water. It's only going to like make the situation worse, because I'm just diluting this, I'm just diluting the acid that's there.
Right.
And so it's just like irritating it even more. And so I think that was like such a big change for me. And so if for anybody that's like experiencing anything like that, I would recommend, like, if you're not going to try and get more liver into your diet, which it could have so many profound effects that like you didn't even, like I said, all the benefits that I've seen from it, I would definitely say like at least try and look into things like a good quality like vitamin B complex that has a lot of like what's missing from today's diets.
Yeah. Well, American diet for sure.
Yeah. And all the junk food that you eat and everything else, like, that's playing a role in actually making you more deficient in a lot of these nutrients.
Right.
Because, your body has to like detoxify all this shit, and all of that stuff is used in the detoxification process.
Of course. And I think it's interesting that you and Jackie are very, very passionate about nutrition.
Yes.
Right. And on the podcast are mostly just a lot of my writing, understanding the individual from a habitual aspect. I always think that like mental health is more like mental health practices, but you guys are very, very passionate about saying that your diet is responsible for, like you said, like genetics and diet is responsible for like depression, anxiety, and all that stuff. And I think it is. I think the perfect balance would be sobriety and just the cleanest diet ever.
Yeah.
And there's one person who we have on here, because I do have a good diet. I don't have the best diet. And when I mean that, it's always just going to come full circle back around to Joe.
Yeah, of course.
So Joe's 100% sober and on probably the healthiest diet you can possibly be on.
Joe's doing it right too, in a bunch of other ways too.
And he's got all the best positive mindset work and all that stuff.
Yeah, the mindset. He's got positive social connections. He's got, he's working out,
exercising,
being exercise.
Food,
yeah,
he's got it down.
He's very goal oriented. So yeah, he's doing everything right.
Right.
And I think that all of those things are pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
I think when I talk about the depression and the anxiety piece, I think more so if you are doing things right, and like you don't necessarily have reasons to be anxious, or you just seem to be like especially like not at all resilient, and like
you're just like down.
Yeah.
And
you're just down and you can't figure out why, then that's where like nutritional intervention can like really come in, because like, I have not had the best mindset, and there's been times where I would consider myself depressed.
Right.
And I've also noticed like one of the huge benefits is that I've just been a lot happier lately.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest, if you start eating liver, like you said, you get in all these nutrients, and then you also stop smoking weed, I can see a lot of
Yeah.
good things happening just from those two instances. And we just named a bunch of different things that Joe's doing right. And, you know, I work out a lot. I eat a whole food-based diet pretty much, unless we go out to eat sometimes. And I do a lot of different mental health exercises, not really
Lifestyle
choices, whether it's, you know, my to-do list or my meditating or my writing or my reading and stuff like that. I take it very seriously. So for anybody out there who just listened to some of the things we named, like the exercise part, the nutritional part, like you said, or the mental health part, like I said, or the habitual part of like maybe smoking, scrolling your phone and stuff, I say find one of those areas that is literally just the brightest red flashing light to you, right? Like that, you know, that you are not putting enough time and effort into.
Yeah.
And that is, once you fix one of those things, like you said, you can't like stop smoking weed, work out 6 days a week, change your entire diet, start trying to do a bunch of healthy mental health exercises all in 1 week.
It needs to be gradual.
You're going to overload yourself.
Yeah.
So
these are habits that have been built over time.
Right. You've built the bad habits over time, so it's going to take time to instill the good habits. So I say find one area and just start there. And I think for you, like having the confidence to do the 5 weeks without weed, now you're like, well, now there's so much more that you can do now in your head. You're
Yes.
like, I did that, something I had been putting off here and there, you know? So now it's like there's motivation with that. Now you get another small victory with the liver thing.
Yeah.
You're like, now I do that. Now I'm doing the working out thing. And it's just almost like a snowball effect of positive things.
Yeah. And I mean, like, so for a while, like, even then, like, the content that I was consuming was mostly around video games. Specifically, you know, I play World of Warcraft, and that was like most of the content that I was consuming, and I would spend most of my time playing video games and, you know, occasionally getting some work done, but not really having the motivation to kind of push outside of that. And since then, like, you know, I spent a lot of time prior to this, at least even when I was still smoking, but when I was actually very active, like listening to a lot of podcasts and YouTube content from, you know, various doctors, influencers, whatever you want to call them, even so far as going to like certain events. Like when I went to KetoCon in Austin, just to kind of see it and listen to some of these people speak, and, you know, what I would consider my heroes. I got to meet some of them and,
That's
you know,
cool.
shake their hands, take pictures with them. And so that all that stuff was cool. But so more recently, I've been able to get back into that and kind of start to branch out as well, and, you know, start looking at other things that I'm interested in and kind of bring more of that positive, I would say, content back into my life and back into my routine. And I think that's, you know, that's been a that's also kind of helped me change both my mindset and a lot of my decisions.
There's been a willingness to now branch out into the different content, or the old content. You know, because when we're stuck in those routines of doing the same shit for like a whole year, right? Like when I was playing League, even though I was sober, I was playing League for a whole year.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was still in pretty good shape and I was eating all right, but I'm playing a year's worth of video games, like with all my free time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not writing. I'm not meditating.
Yeah.
I'm not
You're not drinking.
I'm not like killing myself internally, but I was stagnant.
You're just replacing one bad habit with another bad
habit.
And I mean, like, it was a less bad habit, but it's still a bad habit.
Right.
So eventually you got to break that one too.
Which I did, exactly. Which is, you know, the topic of the second book I'm writing. I've talked about it a million times on here. It's the hierarchy of habits, you know, replacing the bad habits with better ones over time. And for a year of doing that, once you're done doing it, like you said, you started circling around to different content and you stopped the weed, and then the liver thing came in. When I stopped playing League after that 1 year, I had to cut out video games entirely.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Right? And I couldn't, and then I also started reading a lot after that. I was writing a lot more. I was working out even more so than before. So having those small victories and changes, and then, goddamn, just taking them and rolling with them and making a lot of other bigger, better choices. That's really how it's done.
I mean, a lot of people everybody's looking for instant gratification. They're looking for a pill that's going to change, that's going to fix whatever they have. They're looking for, I want to do this once and it's going to make a difference. And unfortunately, in terms of the liver thing, I was so happy to see that that's actually how it worked out for me. But for the most part, it doesn't work like that. And it just needs to be something that's gradual, that you build up like a snowball rolling down a hill.
Right.
And so unfortunately, you can snowball the wrong way. And that's what happens to a lot of people, is they end up snowballing the wrong way. So, you gotta walk back up the hill and make a new snowball.
Right. And then send that thing down.
Exactly.
So I think we made a lot of good points. You got anything else you want to say? Maybe for the average listener out there who might want to stop doing a bad habit and start doing some good ones?
I mean, so I guess a couple things. For one, having somebody to do it with you is always easier, but it can also make things more difficult. I can say that I've been wanting to stop smoking for a while, and, being with my significant other and us smoking in the house and constantly being around it and everything else definitely did not make it easy.
Right.
But once we decided to do it together and it got to the point where she was ready to do it, then it got a lot easier. And, the fact that we're doing it together and we're both relying on each other.
That's huge.
So having that support system is a big thing. No matter how big or how small the goal is, having somebody there that you can rely on or who can keep you accountable. I mean, I think is huge.
That's what the weed thing and with the nutrition thing, the eating habits,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that also trying your best to remove yourself from it is also a great thing. There's been, a bunch of studies out there on just there's all these little devices now that you can get where it's like a locked container where you can throw your Xbox controller into this little container and then set a timer on it and set the timer for a couple days. And eventually you just stop thinking about that habit. The cravings just stop.
Right.
And so I think that that's really important to note, is that if you keep feeding the cravings, they're going to keep coming. Mm-hmm. But if you don't feed the cravings, eventually they're going to stop, or they might still keep coming, but they're going to get less and less and less.
And you'll be strong enough to say no to them.
Exactly.
In the long run.
You'll have more and more willpower over time. It's just like working out. You need to get that muscle bigger too. Willpower is a muscle. You need to work it, and you need to bench press some willpower. It's the only way that you're gonna get bigger willpower.
I like that. Did you come up with that?
Just
Did you hear
now.
that somewhere?
No,
that's pretty good. Yeah, willpower is a muscle.
Yeah,
you should put that on a T-shirt or
there
something.
You go. Yeah,
that's fucking nice.
Willpower is a muscle too.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm serious. You should do that.
Yeah, maybe I will.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we got today. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode. So yeah. Do your best, stay up, and feel free out there. Peace out.
Peace.